Hey everybody, Chris with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal in Palm Beach County, Florida, and this video is going to be going over getting started in junk removal today. So if you're not doing this as a business and you just want to kind of test the waters, see how things are with your location, see if it's going to be profitable enough to do, see if you even like the industry in general. Not many people like junk removal. They usually fall into it through another avenue that introduce themselves to it. Most people don't just dream of doing junk removal. So you want to make sure you even like this in the first place before you commit yourself to a whole business. And these are a couple of steps I recommend you take to see if that's going to work out for you specifically. And the worst case, hopefully you make a little bit of money on the side if you decide this is not what you want to do. Now, this whole video is going to be based on the assumption that you do not have a pickup truck already. If you do have your own pickup truck, then you can bypass the rental portion and everything else is the same. But if you don't, this is what I did to get started, and this is what a lot of people I know do, so it's definitely doable. And that is to get a rental truck. Now, I personally recommend U-Hauls. Why? Because they have locations everywhere. They have multiple size vehicles, so you can kind of differentiate the truck based on the size job you may be walking into, and it's super easy to reserve a truck last minute. Now, a lot of people like to use Lowe's or Home Depot, and that's fine, but you want to make sure that number one, it's available, because I believe it's first come, first serve. At least they are in my area. So you might get a call at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they're like, hey, I want a couch removed. And you go to Home Depot and there's no trucks. Whereas you could go on U-Haul and go on your phone and look up your location and they can say, oh, you have a truck available at these 4 different locations. Would you like to reserve one now? And they can go pick it up in an hour. There's no limit to it, as long as it's available, which again, they're very spread out, so you most likely will. In addition to that, you can also reserve equipment through U-Haul much easier than you can with Home Depot. You can get a hand truck, you can get a dolly, you can get any blankets if you need to maybe slide stuff around in the house. Anything you need to kind of get a job done, you could do. And it's a lot easier with the U-Haul, in my opinion. It might be cheaper in the short run to do a Home Depot truck, but I think the sake of ease and guarantee with U-Haul is much more worth it for the extra 10-15 bucks you might be spending. Now, when it comes to marketing to actually get your jobs in the first place, you're not a business, you're not gonna have ads, you're not gonna have any kind of branding or name to what you're trying to do. I recommend 2 things: Facebook, Nextdoor. On Facebook, join your local groups, look for people asking about junk removal. Even if they're not looking directly for junk removal, if they're looking for a mover, you can comment and say, hey, this is a local company that I've heard does pretty good work. Just look at the reviews. But if you need to get rid of any stuff before you move, like you want to downsize or get rid of any trash, I can help you out with the junk removal portion. I recommend doing that. And then on Nextdoor doesn't really have groups per se. It's based on your neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. So it's a little bit more open and public, but same concept. Anybody looking for junk removal, you can comment your information and try to book things that way. That's what I did when I first started, and it probably made up about 30% of my jobs. Plus, you can do it anytime, anywhere, as long as you have access to your phone and an internet connection. Now, when it comes to giving estimates, if you're going to be getting your rental truck, I recommend you try to get some photos to give estimates from, so you don't have to rent a truck to go do a job that you don't have a guarantee of getting, because if they say no, then you're going to be paying for this truck regardless. It doesn't matter. You already booked it. You're already paying for it. So I recommend doing photos to get an approval from the customer before you go out there, assuming you are using the rental trucks. Now, when it comes to giving an estimate, you're not a full-fledged business with a pricing sheet and a set truck every single time. You might be using different sizes. So I recommend that you price jobs on 2 different things. Either 1, cubic yardage, or 2, buy an item. So for cubic yardage, your cubic yard is 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. Think of like a big cube. A standard refrigerator is usually 2 cubic yards. A washer machine is usually referenced as 1 cubic yard. A standard love seat is usually like 2 volume-wise, to kind of give you some things to relate to. So you can think, okay, if I'm walking into a bedroom, the customer's saying the bed needs to go, the frame needs to go, the dresser, and the 2 nightstands, you can think in your mind, okay, if I were to put all that stuff into one pile, how many washer machines roughly would that take up? And maybe the answer is 6. Then you know, okay, I have 6 cubic yards that I need to quote for. Now, the national average for a cubic yard is around $50. So you could quote and say, hey, that's going to be around 300 bucks. And if the customer is like, that's a little high, here's your chance to kind of slide in there. Now, $50 is a national average, but you could do 40. You're not a business. You have nothing to your name. You're just trying to make some money. So as long as it makes sense for you after the cost of a rental truck and your time and their disposal fees, then you can do it. So you could always say, okay, I understand. I will be in your area later today though. You won't, but they don't know that. So instead of doing the $300, maybe you cut it down to 40 and say, I'll do it for $240. And usually that kind of discount will pique most people's interest enough to say, okay, yeah, let's do it. And they probably know that realistically, if they were to call another company like 1-800-GOT-JUNK or College Hunks or something, it's probably going to be almost double. So you're probably going to be in a pretty good standing as far as that goes. Now, the other thing that you could do is you could price by item. Now, I don't recommend having this super long price sheet because you're not a business, but have some general items to go off of for size comparison, much like the cubic yardage. So, for example, maybe a large dresser you charge $50 for. A bed frame and box spring maybe you charge $100 for. A 3-seater couch maybe $100. A love seat or a refrigerator maybe $75. Now, those 4 or 5 items, keep that in your mind. So anything else a customer says, hey, that goes, this pile boxes go, you can think in your mind, okay, is this credenza pretty similar to a size of a dresser? Yes, great. I'm going to charge $50 for it or $75, whatever I said. Is this pile of boxes, if I were to stack it up next to the bed, is it roughly the same size? Great, I'm going to charge this much for that. And you can use that size comparison, but that way you're kind of judging it based on a small, medium, large, or maybe like a wide piece or a very flat, large piece, things that can give you a good idea of comparison by shape. And then keep in mind, you're not 1-800-GOT-JUNK or College Hunks. You're not going to be charging their pricing. So your pricing may seem low when you price this all together, and that's fine. Why? Because you are a nobody, and you need to keep that in mind. Now, the next thing is because you're not a business, you're probably not going to be taking credit cards as a payment. So you need to make sure you tell people ahead of time before you agree to do the job and they agree to the price that you don't take credit cards. That is a big form of payment in junk removal, especially because you take payment at the end of a job. So you want to let them know, hey, I can take cash, Venmo, Zelle, or check. I don't do credit cards. And if they ask why, be honest and say, I'm not a legitimate business. I'm just kind of doing this as side income. And therefore, I don't have a POS system linked up to a business, so I don't take credit cards. It's pretty straightforward. Every now and then you'll get somebody that says, oh, a cashless business, I don't want to deal with you guys. That's fine. But most people are going to be understanding and they're going to appreciate the fact that you gave them options. Now, this next part isn't 100% necessary, but I do find it to be a very cheap option that's good for both you and the person that you were doing the job for, which is to get some paper invoices. You can go to Walmart, you can go to Office Depot, you can go on Amazon. You can easily find a booklet with carbon copies for less than $10. And you just fill out the customer's name. You can put your name and your phone number. You can write down their address. Keep it super simple. You don't need to put your invoice number and stuff. It doesn't matter because you don't have invoices. And you can just write down how much you charge and what you took and then have them sign off on it. Super simple. But leave them a copy. You take a copy. This way, you can keep track of how much money you're making per month. And your customer has a copy that shows, hey, I had junk removal done. That could be for tax purposes. That could be for records if they're selling their house, whatever the cost may be. It doesn't matter. It could be good for both of you. And it's like $10 or less. And then at the end of the job, I highly recommend you ask the customer, hey, if you are happy with my services, I would love for you to share my name and phone number with anybody you know who may need junk removal. And you can explain some situations. You could say, if you know anyone who's trying to declutter, do some spring cleaning, maybe they're moving soon or they're downsizing, that's a perfect opportunity for junk removal. I would love if you shared my information with them. You don't need business cards to do that. You have a name, you have a phone number. That's all you realistically need. It's just not on a piece of paper. So that's a great way to especially get into the habit of doing it. So in the future, you're already a step ahead. Now, a couple of things I really want to mention is number one, don't claim that you're a business if you're not. Don't claim to be licensed if you're not. Don't claim to be insured if you're not, because that's going to be a really big legal problem if you ever get stuck in a situation that went south. In addition to that, don't take on a job you're not comfortable handling. If you don't have moving experience, you don't have any junk removal experience, Don't take down a big dresser from upstairs if you don't know how to use a hand truck properly. Don't take big items that you can't move on your own without damaging the floors or the walls. That's going to lead into some serious consequences if you don't know what you're doing and you cause some serious damage, especially with hardwood flooring or tile. You don't want to be breaking tile or scratching up hardwood flooring. That is thousands of dollars in cost. It does not matter if you're not a business. They can still go after you, and it'll probably be even worse because you have no protection on your side. So don't fake it. Be honest about it. And if you screw up, you screw up. You got to kind of, take responsibility for that. Try to keep yourself out of obvious situations that you're not going to be able to do. And as I mentioned with the rental trucks, you can get dollies, you can get hand trucks to help you out. I recommend getting a couple of moving blankets because you can always put a piece on the moving blanket and slide it if you need to get it out of a room or through a tight space like a hallway or something. We have a lot of videos talking about moving stuff when you're on your own, assuming you're by yourself. If you're not, obviously you can carry it. But if you are on your own, we have a lot of videos kind of talking about different tips and tricks to moving things safely without causing damage. So be sure to check those out. And at the very end, because you are here to make money, I recommend that you keep your expenses low, even as a non-business. In fact, I think it's even more important because you're not going to have tax write-offs because you're doing this on the side. So if you can avoid going to the dump, I recommend you do that. It costs money to dump stuff. You can donate stuff first, or you could sell stuff and make even more money. It's a great opportunity to try to resell and make a little extra money. But try to do those first and then dispose last. So that way you're not having to fork out more money on top of your rental truck for a job that you're already doing cheaper than what most junk removal companies charge. So those are the tips I recommend if you are looking to get into junk removal but don't want to start a business yet. Don't put yourself in a situation that 6 months down the road you're going to hate yourself for and you're going to be trying to get out of it because it's going to cost money to do that, in addition to any debt you may have or any vehicles you try to finance through the business. It's obviously just a lot of hiccups you want to try to avoid. So try this out for a month, 2 months, see if it's going to even work. And if you decide you like it, then take the next step and start a business. It's a lot more profitable in the long run to have a business out of it than to just be doing the stuff on the side for the rest of your life. So those are my tips. If you're interested in junk removal, but you want to learn a little bit more about it, obviously there's plenty of information out there, but it could take a long time to sit there and sift through it all to see what works for you. We have a channel membership with a playlist for everything you need to get started in junk removal, going over every single topic. It's $19.99 if you want to check it out. I put it together myself. It took me a long time to do it, but I believe it to be a very thorough and step-by-step process to get started in junk removal. Even if you don't start a business, it's still good to go through to get an understanding of how this all works. So that's going to be it for me. And if you're looking to get into junk removal, comment it down below where you are located and why you are looking to get into junk removal. But I'm Chris with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal, and hope everyone has a good day. Thanks.